Hey you guys, welcome or welcome back to Our Awaken. So for today's video, I am back with my 36 harsh realities of life that you should know because y'all, people be peopling, and I just feel like these are really great things to know so that way you aren't going out into the world confused as to why are you experiencing certain things. And the reality is, a lot of things in life you would think, okay, if this is this, then this would be the outcome, but a lot of times that's not the case, or things can just happen to go differently than you might expect for whatever reason. And with my 26 and a half years on this earth, these are just some harsh truths and realities that I've come to learn that I was just like, damn, like why does life have to be this way? So I'm not gonna hold you guys any longer. Let's get straight into it. So oftentimes we hear like when you're an overly giving person, people are gonna take advantage of you, but people don't talk about how like when you are overly giving, overly helpful, sometimes people can resent you for that. And you might think like, why? If a person needs help and you're extending that to them and you might always be extending it to them, why is it that they might grow to resent you or feel like spiteful towards you? Honestly, it's more so of an ego thing of a person feeling like a failure or feeling like you're always the one to come and save them, so that can make them feel like they're inadequate or like they're incapable of doing something. Basically, like you're always there to like fix their shortcomings. A person can feel like bad about that, even though it's like you shouldn't look at it from that perspective. Help is help, and if you need it, then just take it. But sometimes people can resent you for that. So just to give like a quick example, I knew someone where they would always come to me for advice, just life advice and things, and I would always have information to give them, just sound wisdom. And sometimes I would even share things with them because it's like, well, you're my friend, so if I'm learning this, I want you to level up in life with me type of thing. And I remember one day like the person was just like, well, why do you feel like you need to like know all of this? But it's just like, how dare you say that? And it was the way that the person said it, almost like they felt some type of way that I knew the things that I knew. And it was just like, how are you feeling some type of way about the information that you benefit off of? It just didn't make sense to me. And to be honest, that's when it clicked for me. Like a person could benefit off of something that you are giving to them, but when their self-worth starts to feel like threatened by your giving to them, that can be like a little like, okay. Or I heard a story before of like a person who had like an abundance of things because they were an influencer, so they would receive a lot of just like material things, and because they had so much of it, they wanted to get rid of some things. And they started to notice that the people that they were donating it to, sometimes they would develop like this kind of like jealousy of like, oh, you're able to have these things, but it's just like you're being given the things as well, so why do you feel some type of way? And you would think a person would be grateful to have the things that you are giving them. But again, if a person's ego and their self-worth feels threatened by your giving, that's when you kind of have to pull back and say like, okay, I'm not going to be so giving, because if you feel some type of way about me extending a hand to you, it's just like, you know what, I'm not going to overplay my part. You get what I'm saying? So now I'm at a point where it's like, if you ask for my opinion on something, I'll give it, but I'm not just giving unsolicited advice when I know like it could benefit you. Number two, I used to think that being like unconfrontational, being a kind person, being unproblematic would mean that I would avoid problematic, confrontational, mean people. But the reality is that is far from the truth. And this one is kind of 50-50, because I feel like me being unproblematic did save me from problems, but it's also like another aspect of there are just some people who are problematic and troubled individuals. So even if you are being kind to them or you're being like trying to like de-escalate things, some people just be dealing with their own demons and they want to provoke problems. Growing up, I was never really in problems because I was just not a problematic person, and I feel like I pretty much got along with people. And I think that was one of like the first harsh realities that I could remember, where I was just like, damn. Especially when I got into adulthood, the beauty industry, and I had my business. For example, I had a client who, she was upset because she missed her appointment, right? She missed her appointment and she was mad at me saying, why didn't I remind her? And I'm just like, that's not my responsibility to remind you, but I'm willing to give you an appointment again, right? But she just kept going and going and going. And I'm like, wow, I have been so accommodating to you. I've been kind to you. And yet you're meeting me with like you trying to fight me. And I was just like, listen, man, you're not coming to my house, because the way you're acting, appointment canceled, go find you another lash tech, because no. So that was another reality check for me. And also being that I was renting spaces, there will be people where they would have like a little animosity towards me, and I'm just like, what did I do to y'all? Like, I come in, I say hi, I don't bother nobody, but for some reason, which I know the reasons, again, it's an ego thing, it's a person feeling insecure or whatever the case is, some people just don't care how kind you are, and it's almost like the kinder you are, their demons want them to be mean, and their ego just wants to provoke you and just to start problems. And with this point, I'm not saying to not be a kind, unproblematic person, because again, I feel like that has saved me from being in problematic situations. But the harsh reality is, just because you are approaching people in that kind manner does not mean that people are always going to return that back to you. Next, you cannot undo your mistakes in life, but you can learn from them. A lot of times I feel like people tend to ruminate on their mistakes, and I used to be that person where like something will pop up in your head like, damn, I wish I could have done this differently, and you kind of like feel bummed out about it. You can't sit there and say like, oh, I wish I could change this. Like, yeah, you can have that feeling, but the reality is the mistakes that you make in life, the experiences that you have, they are all to be utilized as like wisdom for you to move forward in life and say like, okay, I experienced this before, moving forward, if I were to experience it again or in a different fashion, this is what I would do. That's how you should think about your mistakes, but you shouldn't allow them to hold you back or feel shamed or guilt by it or whatever the case is. Listen, we do not have time machines and we cannot go back and change things. So it is not of your best interest to sit there and just keep thinking about them. And let's be honest, your mistakes make you who you are. They build character. So to say that you want to go and change it is you literally erasing yourself, parts of yourself. So please understand that your mistakes do not define you as a person. It does not define your worth. You can evolve from your mistakes, and that's what you should do. The past is gone, but you can learn from it. Do not dwell on the past so much that you allow it to keep you stuck, but use it as a foundation in order for you to navigate life in the best way possible with the wisdom that you have gained. Next, and this one is like one of those like harsh realities of life that I feel like a lot of people let hold them back from experiencing the beautiful side of it. But the harsh reality is, the more love that you have for someone, the more that they can hurt you. And this one sucks, honestly, because when you think about it, if somebody that you don't really care about, they do something that like just bothers you, or like it won't penetrate as deeply because it's just like you weren't even a relevant factor. But when you genuinely have care for someone, they say betrayal only comes from people that you genuinely have love and care for. That is a fact, because those are people you allow them close to your heart. So when they do things to hurt you, it can really hurt, because it's just like, damn, like I wouldn't have expected that from you, or this could possibly compromise our dynamic. And honestly, I feel like that's why a lot of people are afraid to love, because it's just like there are risks when it comes to loving, because you are allowing a person into your inner space. You are opening your heart up to a person, and you are allowing yourself to be vulnerable within that dynamic. And the possibility, or just even the idea of them possibly hurting you, is just like, damn, nah, like I can't even let you get close. But honestly, I've been learning like love is a beautiful thing to experience, and to say that I'm gonna guard myself, of course you do things with discernment, you know who to open up to, who not to open up to, but it's just like, to say that you're not willing to allow people close to you is you holding yourself back from possibly experiencing something beautiful that may not go sour. You get what I'm saying? Like, people are imperfect, right? So people aren't gonna always get it right, but it's just like the thought of like not allowing yourself to really love because you are afraid of being hurt is you holding yourself back from experiencing just something that could be great. And that's just one of those like double-edged swords when it comes to love. Yes, you can get hurt, but you could also not get hurt. You just have to be willing to take that chance for a person that you feel is worth that. And it's not even just romantic, right? This could be friendship, this could be family, this could be whatever the case is. But to open yourself up to experience the beauty of love is to also understand that there are potential, you know, negatives that could come with it, but you just have to pray that it don't reach that point. Next, no matter how much you adjust yourself in relationships, and I'm not just talking romantic, right? I'm talking platonic, family, or whatever the case is. No matter how much you adjust yourself, if the other person is not adjusting themselves in order for you to have a healthy dynamic, it's just not going to work in the way that you think. Let's say in relationships, you feel like, okay, the relationship, there's something rocky, it's not really working out because you guys are clashing clashing in some way. And relationships are about compromise. It's about two people putting their heads together to say like, hey, what can we both do in order to make this flow in a good way, right? If you say that you're going to adjust yourself and work on the things that you need to, and the other person is not pulling their weight, at some point you guys are going to not be equally yoked, and it's going to be very imbalanced. So it requires for both people to play their part in order for things to flow. But if one person is doing their part and the other person is not doing their part, eventually it's just going to feel very unbalanced. And I just don't think it's fair that one person puts that burden on themselves to keep adjusting themselves, because it's just like, are you being considered in the dynamic while the other person is just there? The harsh reality in a lot of dynamics is a lot of dynamics are toxic, and sometimes I feel like there's always like that people pleaser versus that like egotistical type of dynamic thing going on, which tends to work, and it's toxic because the people pleaser is working so hard to correct themselves, but it's just like, again, you are working so hard to fix yourself, adjust yourself, to people please, to try to fit the mold of whatever this person needs, but is your needs getting met as well? If your needs are not getting met, then the dynamic is toxic, and you need to consider yourself, and you need to dismiss yourself, honestly. Next, the underdog is always loved and supported until they are not the underdog anymore. And this one, y'all, when I tell you, I could not wrap my head around this. And I have experienced this so much in my life. I feel like the more that I was like not so confident, the more that I was not so like outspoken or just myself, truly authentically myself, I had so much support. The second I started to be confident, and I'm not saying in an arrogant way, but the more people started to see, I feel like, just me just like coming out of my shell and things like that, and really stepping into who I am, and I'm still actively doing that, I feel like the less support I was getting. And at first it was like a shocker to me, because I'm just like, what the heck, like, where are people at? But it wasn't me looking from a space of an ego booster for people to validate me, because I was validating myself. But I'm not gonna lie, like during those moments, it made me have to click in my mind, like, you have to be the one to validate yourself and not seek that outside validation, because sometimes you could subconsciously be using outside validation to fuel yourself. And I feel like as humans we do that, right? But it is so important to validate yourself, to be your biggest cheerleader, to not let outside influence, whether it's positive or negative, really like fuel the direction that you view yourself in. You have to be confident in yourself. And honestly, it's so crazy because people will support you when you're not up here, when you're just not really fully embodying the person that you could be. And I feel like it honestly comes down to whether it's like you're now seen as a threat, or sometimes people who are not like leveling up in their life might start to feel like you're out of reach, or you're out of their league, or whatever the case is. But it's just like people will operate like that, but then like in their minds sometimes feel like, oh, you changed. But it's just like a person could have changed for the better, but like a lot of times people really just be like themselves, but people will project negatively onto them. And it's just like, I didn't change. Like, yeah, I changed for the better, but like I'm still the same person that I am. So it's like, for you to feel like you have to keep your distance, again, that's not something for me to like hyper fixate on or think about, but it's just something that I noticed where I'm just like, okay, listen, God will always bring the people that are meant to be around you. So again, you don't have to worry about what's going on outside of you externally. As long as your inside world is good, that is all that matters, okay? And also, I feel like this ties into, people like to see you doing good, but when you start to do too good, or when they start to see proof of that, people be going ghost. And it's just, I don't know, it's just interesting, honestly. Next, you will not always receive an apology from people, but you will just have to forgive people for the sake of yourself and for the sake of your own peace and your healing. The reality is, even when people do you wrong, some people don't feel like they owe you an apology because they don't believe that they did you wrong. And some people will know that they do owe you an apology, right? And when you really think about it, the reality is, sometimes when people don't give you an apology and they're avoiding you, it could be from two different perspectives. So for one, their pride and ego could genuinely feel like they don't owe you an apology and they just don't care. But it could also be another perspective of, sometimes people feel shame and guilt for knowing the way that they like just moved, so they won't really feel like that like courage to really speak up and say something to you. So I just want to say, like, don't ever feel like when a person is not giving you an apology that you're not worthy of an apology or of accountability. The right people will always extend accountability to you out of consideration, and you don't have to like pull teeth to get an apology out of people. And one thing that I do know is, even when people are not saying something to you and they know that they are wrong, it will be eating them up. So to be honest, it's not even worth you like pondering on it, like, oh, so they're just not gonna say nothing. Like, no, sometimes it's eating them up alive and they're just not saying nothing. So don't even stress yourself about it. Next, you have been programmed to not tap into your fullest potential. And the sooner you realize that, I promise you, the sooner you can fix your life the way you need to, and the sooner you can actually live a reality that you are proud of, that you are actually creating for yourself. First, you have to realize that majority of your beliefs are not even from your own choosing. Most of it is rooted in fear, control, manipulation, and other people's projections. Then it is your responsibility, through awakening from life experiences, to consciously reprogram your mind from the things that you were once taught to fit the narrative that makes the most sense to your higher self. With the help of your self-awareness, your healing, you trusting yourself and believing in your capabilities, and most importantly, truly believing that you are worth the things that you are desiring in life. Next, money does not solve all your problems. And if y'all haven't noticed this just growing up, a lot of these celebrities or people with money, they have everything that they could possibly want in life, and yet they are not happy. And the reality is, in a capitalistic world, money is basically a tool to provide you comfort. It allows you opportunity and access to material items that you need in order to survive in life, and also purchase your desires in life. But it's just like, you can't look at it as like, oh, once I get money, everything is just gonna be okay. Like, no, money is there to help provide you comfort, so you get your food, shelter, the things that you need, whether it's the lifestyle that you want to live so that you feel comfortable. But at the end of the day, like, you still have to do the work to work on your mental, to keep yourself spiritually aligned, mentally aligned, emotionally aligned, physically. You still have to take care of your vessel. Like, there's so much that goes into like making a person feel good. It's not just money. Money is just a tool, but if you don't know what to do with that money because your mind is not in the right state, and you get a whole lot of money and you don't know what to do with it, you're gonna blow it and you're just gonna make poor investments. But when you work on the other parts of yourself to balance yourself out so that you feel whole inside, when you get that money, you're gonna know what to do with it that's going to make you feel fulfilled, because you would then be investing it properly in order to create your best reality. Next, in my personal opinion, leveling up in life is not just about external things. The more that you work on yourself inside is what will reflect on the outside, regardless of your status, of what you have, or anything like that. When you feel good, that will then translate into other parts of your life. So for me personally, 5 things that I feel like you should always keep in mind, and just like parts of your life that you should be pouring into, intentionally pouring into, is your spiritual health. So your prayers, your connection to God, or just whatever keeps you like spiritually aligned. Your emotional health, so making sure that you are taking care of your inside, your mind, your feelings, and all of that. Your mental health, making sure you're decluttering what's going on in there, taking care of yourself. Your physical health, making sure you're moving your body, feeding your body good things to nourish you and actually give you the proper energy that you need. And then financially, I feel like finances are energy, so when you have like these other things in line, money flows easier to you. So you just have to keep that in mind, honestly. And a lot of times you realize with people, like, they're so focused on the external things. So say for example, when it comes to women, they'll focus so much on beauty, and it's just like you're not really paying attention to your internal state. So you can look beautiful on the outside, but if you're not feeling good inside with yourself, but also if you're operating from an ugly state, reflecting that onto other people, in my opinion, that's not leveling up. And then with guys, just because you focus so much on your material, your finances, and you have all these riches or whatever, if you're not like leveling up your character development, I just feel like you're not leveling up. You get what I'm saying? Next, this one is something I'm always going to talk about. There are mad religious people who are wolves in sheep's clothing, and I'm going to always say this. There are way too many people where it's just like they feel like because they are classifying themselves under a specific religion, religion, that they are to just be seen as this good godly person. But the harsh reality is there are a lot of wicked spirited people who be making it seem like, oh, they're this like great person, but behind closed doors be doing some evil demonic stuff. And that is something that people need to keep in mind. Just because a person is saying that, oh, I follow this religion or I believe in God, that does not automatically mean that they're that person. You get what I'm saying? Because we see a lot of that being exposed on media. Like in this video, I'm not even gonna go into specifics about like the different religions and things like that and the things that people be doing behind closed doors, but just know, just because a person claims to be religious does not mean that they are this godly person. A lot of people cloak themselves over that to like basically mask themselves for the evil person that they are, but yet people want to demonize spiritual people. And I'm not saying all spiritual people are good, because I'll be lying if I said that, but I just want to say, like, get to know people not based off of what they tell you, but what you are experiencing through them. What energy are you picking up from them? And that's why I say it's so important to understand that we are spiritual beings having a human experience, and it's so important to look at people not from what you see, but from the spirit that they are operating in, but also what they consistently show you. Because people can put on a mask and show you like, oh, I'm this nice person, but in reality it's just like they're just cloaking themselves, waiting to bite. Okay, so pay attention. Next, this goes into one of my beginning points. You can be the nicest person and people will still find a reason not to like you. And this one can be hard for a lot of people, especially people pleasers or people who want to be liked or feel like the sense of validation based off of people liking them. Sometimes you can be the sweetest, kindest person and somebody will find a reason not to like you. And it's not something for you to internalize. Sometimes people hate how kind you are because it reflects back to them the kindness that they lack. Sometimes how considerate you are can reflect back to a person how selfish they are. And sometimes how caring you are can reflect back to a person how uncaring they are. And the harsh reality is, it's even worse when you are attractive, you're genuinely kind, and you're smart. When I tell you, people will either love you or hate you. Like a lot of times it don't be in between, and that's the harshest part. And to experience that can be like really just like, what the heck is going on? Because even when you think certain people love you, that can just be a mask of envy, because you'll notice like sometimes people will be hot and cold with you. So sometimes people can show you love and then like 50% of the time you'll get this feeling like they don't like you. That hot and cold behavior, you need to like keep your distance, because it's just like that person doesn't really like you. You want consistency when people are operating with you. If you one day like me, one day you don't like me, and I'm not doing anything to you, you are battling something internally that you're feeling towards me that you are not processing properly, and you're projecting that onto me, and that's not fair. So when I say like they hate you, it's not more so that they hate you, but it's just they don't like what you reflect back to them and how they feel based off of what they're experiencing with you. So again, it's not a you thing, it's a them thing, and it's something that they need to process, and if they're not processing it correctly, then they're going to project that onto you. So at the end of the day, it's not something for you to internalize, because when you don't understand these things, it can be like this feeling of like, well, why are people like this? Why are people treating me this way? And when I'm not doing anything to them, it's not you, it's them. Right? And it's not your job to people please to try to get them to like you, because when a person don't like you and you are trying to like overly be nice, overly be giving, and then they do start to like you, that is not coming from a genuine place, because now you guys are in a very unbalanced dynamic where it's like you have to keep overextending yourself for them to basically be using you to their benefit, and once you stop, you're gonna see their true colors, that they don't really like you. So don't even bother wasting your time. As long as you like you, that's all that matters, okay? And the harsh reality with this is sometimes people could stereotype you and like make you out to be something that you're not before they even get to know you, but they have an idea of you based on what they see, right? So you could be like this genuinely kind person, but an insecure person or a person dealing with their own demons might be like, oh, well, nobody's that nice or nobody's like this, and they will try to like find little things to pick at, to try to find little cracks in your personality. But once they get close enough to realize that you are exactly what you present yourself to be and you're not faking it, sometimes that will make a person's insecurities heighten even more and they will not like you for that reason. Next, people often love the version of you that they benefited most from. So if the version of you that was the people pleaser, you were overly giving, you had no boundaries, once you decide that you are now going to gain some self-respect, some self-love, set some boundaries, when I tell you, people will start to make you out to be a villain because you are no longer overplaying your part. You're no longer allowing yourself to be taken advantage of. People will make you out to be like, oh, like, who do you think you are? Or just this entitlement that they'll have and try to make you out to be a bad person. But it's just like, I wasn't this bad person when you were benefiting off of it, right? But now that a person now has boundaries and all these things, now you want to paint them out to be like, oh, they're selfish and this and that. Like, that's not fair. And the harsh reality is, when you are a pushover, a people pleaser, you lack boundaries, you allow people to use and abuse you, you will have so many people around you with their hand out ready to drain you dry with no cares at all. But the second you decide to put some boundaries in place to protect yourself, baby, the tune is gonna change. Listen, the reality is, people don't like people that have self-respect and boundaries because they don't allow people to take advantage of them that does not benefit them. And when you get to that space, you will notice that you will not have as much people around you than you did when you were a people pleaser, because now people know that they can't just manipulate you or play in your face. And the reality is, you have to be okay with that, because you don't want fake people around you. You want people around you who's going to respect you, who's not looking to take advantage of you. So when people fall off, let it be. Because one thing about it, I'd rather quality over quantity. I'd rather have 2 solid people in my corner than have like 20 fake people around me, or 20 people around me that I know doesn't mean me the best. You get what I'm saying? So yeah, next, closure is something that you give to yourself, and you do not have to wait for a person to give that to you. A lot of times, especially when you're growing up, you think a person has to give me closure, whether it's a friendship, relationship, or whatever the case is. You feel like you need to hear the other person's part in order for you to give yourself that like closure that you need in the situation. And sometimes, I'm not gonna lie, like when you don't have the other person's perspective on why things played out the way that it did, it can play on you depending on like just the dynamic that you guys had, and it can cause you to ruminate or just like have limerence. But the reality is, you don't need a person to give you closure, because there are certain situations where, let's say if a person did you real dirty, you don't need to hear their side on why they did what they did, or even giving them the space to even lie to you and tell you like, oh, it wasn't like that. Like, nah, what you experienced is what it was, and you don't need them to give you closure, because for what? You just need to cut them off. Or let's say, for example, if a person passes before you guys reconcile, you can't get closure from them. So what are you gonna do? Like, just spend the rest of your life like down and feeling like, oh, I never heard from them. Like, yeah, you can feel a type of way and it's okay, but it's just like, you can't sit there stuck because you can't ever hear from the person again. You know what I'm saying? So you have to like mentally work through those things so that way you can get to a space of peace. Or here's like another quick story. I had a friend where I was basically like breaking up with her, and I was just explaining like the things that I just didn't feel comfortable with in the friendship. And once I noticed like she was not taking accountability, or she was trying to like shift the story and try to make it seem like what was going on wasn't that, or try to like lie and flip things, I just didn't respond back, because it's just like, listen, I don't need you to try to convince me out of what I'm saying, because I know what I experienced and I'm explaining it exactly how it happened. And the things that I'm explaining to you, there's no way you can talk me out of it, because there's so much evidence of it that I can't even try to BS myself. So for you to sit here and not really take accountability, I'm not about to sit here and entertain your lies. You get what I'm saying? So at that point, I had to give myself that closure. I had to validate myself. I had to reassure myself that what I was experiencing was what I was experiencing, and I wasn't going to allow myself to be gaslit out of that. And also, there could be a situation where a person may not have the courage to speak up to give you that closure, so you can't just sit there waiting around for it. You get what I'm saying? Like, you can't force the person to speak. So if they're not willing to say their part, then you have to give yourself that closure. You have to make sense of the situation in the best way that you can. Take accountability, because I feel like that's one thing when it comes to closure. If you can't get the other person's part, just think about, okay, what could I have done differently, or where did I overplay? You really need to have the self-awareness enough to validate yourself and hold yourself accountable. Basically, taking accountability for your own part as best as you can helps the process of gaining closure, even if it takes time, because time does heal. But the more perspective you have, the easier it becomes. Everything is temporary, including you. Life is not forever. You are not forever. Friendships are not going to be forever. That job is not going to be forever. That plate of food that you have ain't going to be forever. When you are experiencing things, learn to be present enough to experience the best of it. The harsh reality is you never know how long you're going to have with something or someone. For me personally, in the past, I used to very much be like, whether I'm so far in the past or I'm so far in the future, that I wasn't present enough to really experiencing things. And when you realize that like your mindset will affect like how things are going on in a particular moment, you realize how like it can cause you to not really see the beauty in moments. Let's say, for example, a relationship. A lot of people might feel like, oh, I don't want to invest too much because what if it doesn't get anywhere? Or what if this happens? What if that happens? What if I end up hurt? And it's just like all of those feelings are valid, right? But it's also like when you are operating from a space of just like discernment, trying to move with wisdom in the best way possible. If I am interacting with a person, I don't know how long I'm going to experience with you or whatever the case is, but if in the moment it feels like, okay, this is a good thing or this feels like right, I'm going to try to be as present as possible to experience and have like great memories with you. Like, I don't want to be in a good moment and not realize mentally that I'm in a good moment because I'm so far into the future or I'm so far into the past. Just enjoy things while it lasts. And I think that's why it's also so important when it comes to life. Stop holding back. Stop saying I'm gonna wait or I'm gonna listen to what family is telling me to do. Basically, in simple terms, so that I'm not rambling, treat moments with gratitude. Be grateful in every moment, because I feel like when you're operating from gratitude, you are able to see the beauty in situations. And I also feel like you're able to really enjoy life for what it is while you are experiencing it, to create the best memories, because you really never know when it's gonna last. And it's so important to live life on your terms that feels the most fulfilling and most authentic to you, because at the end of the day, it's your life, and other people might try to control you, but it's just like they're not experiencing your everyday life the way that you're experiencing it. They're not in your mind, they're not in your mental state, they're not in your spiritual state. So the reality is they're not experiencing things from your 100% lens. You are experiencing things from your lens, so you are the one who should be dictating how things should go. Do not allow people to dictate your one and only life. Next, you can do everything right in life and things still not go as planned. And this one can be so hard for people, because a lot of people feel like, oh, well, if I follow this specific order, I'm then going to achieve every milestone that I plan for. But the reality is life doesn't always work like that. Things can happen that can throw things off. And one key thing that I learned in life is to be present enough to be in flow and not be so rigid. When you are rigid in life, you are possibly blocking blessings that you don't even see is trying to shift into your life. You may have plans, but God may have other plans for you. And that's just the reality of it. And sometimes the plans that you want could be what God wants for you, but the way that you envision it to go is not the way that God has for it to go in your life. You might think, oh, let me go this path. God might say, no, go this path because I want you to experience this. I have better for you when you go this path. Yeah, it might all ultimately lead to the same point, but it's just like, this is the path that you should go in. And sometimes you don't realize that you not going a specific path that you had planned could be saving you from something. There could have been something that you didn't want to experience down that path, or maybe it's just not the path that is most authentically meant for you, and the other path that you're meant to go on is something that will be more fulfilling to you. So some common examples of that could look like, oh, I'm gonna go to college so that way I can get a really great paying job, so then I could get this and that and that. A lot of people are not living that reality. Or another common example is saying, oh, by the time I reach this age, I'm going to then get married, have kids, have my family. And sometimes it does not work that way for everyone. So it's just like, I think it's really important that when you get into certain roadblocks, not to feel like bummed out about the outcome that you're getting, because sometimes that's not the path that you're meant to go on, and something better is coming for you. But you have to be in a space where you are able to see those opportunities so that it does not bypass you, so that you're not delaying your blessing. Do not allow yourself to be stuck. Sit down, slow down, and let your intuition guide you. So long story short, I went to college to be in dental, and I ended up not going to dental because for some reason I ended up being like a business owner as a lash tech, and I was selling products and doing all these things. And then eventually, once I said I wanted to get a storefront, things were happening where I'm just like, why is this being so hard? Just for me to then realize, like, okay, God is blocking all these different paths that I'm trying to go, because yeah, that helped me get to a certain stepping stone, and that happened for 5 years of my life. But then that season ended and God wanted me to go in a different season. So I had to let go of everything that I built to now be in a season where I'm rebuilding something that is in more alignment with me and that I feel like is more purposeful for me. And the reality is, if people were to have experienced the last year of my life and had to make certain sacrifices, a lot of people would crash out, because it's just like they will feel like their life is falling apart. But I'm in that mindset of, I understand the bigger picture and why things happen the way that it happened, because of just like the different experiences I had, the different signs. You know, when something is just like God is giving you proofs here and there, little nuggets, it's just like, you know what, I'm not stressing. I am going in flow. God, if you telling me go this direction, I'm gonna go this direction, because I see the bigger picture. I don't know the bigger picture, but one thing I know is God has always blessed me bigger than what I expected. Just because you are doing everything right does not mean that things are always going to go as planned, but you have to allow your intuition and your guidance and your wisdom to actually lead your path. Listen, you could be in the dark, but you have to have faith in the process, okay? Have faith in the process. Next, you are responsible for healing things that may not be your fault. And I know to some people, they might not like this, because it's just like, why do I have to do the work for what somebody else has caused? And listen, not everything in your life is going to be your fault, but the reality is, staying in victim mentality after some time is literally you working against yourself. Some people allow that victim mentality to cause them to just point the finger, blame, and stay down. And it's just like, you have to understand that that's not fair to yourself. Like, yeah, you could be in a situation that's not your fault, but it's not wise for you to be the person that's keeping yourself down when you could elevate. Say, for example, like most people, we have childhood wounds, things that we have experienced that we didn't ask to experience, that we, if had the opportunity to say like, hey, I don't want to experience this, I wouldn't experience. Or just whether you were told that you're not good enough, or that you just feel like you're not capable of doing things, so now you grow up to feel like you're incapable of doing things. That is not your fault, because other people projected that onto you, but it is still your responsibility now as an adult to say, okay, this mentality, this idea, this belief is holding me back from being my best self. So I have to do the work to heal from that, to reprogram my mind to say, hey, you are capable, you are worthy, you are able to get the things that you want to do. Or say, for example, if you were cheated on, that does not mean that you are unworthy of love. One thing about it, I hate when people turn into these evil, sour villains, because it's just like, well, somebody hurt me, so now I'm gonna go hurt everybody else. I hate when people do that, because it's just like you're feeding into the problem. Now you are miserable, rightfully so, right? I'm not saying that you can't be hurt and that you can't be jaded, but it's just like there comes to a point where you have to then realize within yourself, like, hey, I hate feeling like this. I don't want to become the person who hurt me. So I'm going to do my part to heal. And then also, again, accountability, right? You should heal from the situation and say, okay, this person doesn't deserve me. This type of person doesn't deserve me. Gain wisdom from your experiences, and then know that you deserve better. And then believing that you deserve better, so that you are not allowing yourself to be in toxic situations. Or a simpler example, let's say you got hit by a car accidentally, right? Was it your fault that you got hit by the car? Let's say no. But let's say that your legs are now broken. Is it the person who hit you? Is it their responsibility for you to now be able to walk again? No, it is your responsibility once you get out of the hospital to go to physical therapy, to now put in the work so that you can now work your muscles to strengthen them back up so that you are able to walk again. You can't say that you're going to stay in victim mentality and just be like, oh, like my legs and this and that. Like, nah. Yeah, it's okay to be like that, because it's like, damn, like, why did that have to happen? But it is still your responsibility to get up, and exercise those muscles so that you can be able to walk again. You get what I'm saying? Next, no one is coming to save you, and at least not in the way that you would hope. Y'all, if you hear my nephew upstairs, he learned my name recently, so he's gonna keep saying it if you do hear him, but if you don't, great. The reality is, if we all could, we would take the path of least resistance, or just least effort, right? All right, and the thing is, in life, if you want something, you have to get up and put in the work to do it in order to receive it. There are no handouts, and oftentimes when you are getting a handout, it comes with strings attached, and sometimes it's not strings that you want to be attached to. And in the instances where you are receiving assistance, you still have to pull your weight in order to see things happen. You can't just sit there. You still have to put in the work, and you still have to make the right moves. Next, you avoiding discomfort can lead to pain after. Oftentimes people say they want things, but people are not willing to do the work to get what they want, and I'm even guilty of this, so I know what I'm talking about. And I say this with balance, of course, right? A lot of times people feel like, oh, you have to push really, really hard in order to get an outcome. But I feel like sometimes people can burn out from that. So you have to have a good sense of balance. So let's say if you want a nice body, you have to be willing to say no in the moments that you want to say yes in, because you know the results that you want. So that body that you want requires you going in the gym, and it requires for you to have discipline in the way that you're eating. And for example, you know, like when you're younger, you often hear, oh, when you're young, you can just do this and that. You don't have to worry. When you get older, you can start worrying about your health and stuff like that. It's just like, no, when you aren't taking care of yourself when you're younger, all of that builds up as you get older, and it can become harder to undo the things that you've already done. So it is of your best intention to say, you know what, I'm going to start taking care of myself now, even if the people around me, around my age, are indulging in things, overly indulging, let's say that, right? You can still be responsible enough to say like, hey, you know what, I'm not going to like overdo it now. I'm going to just be uncomfortable, even if it might mean having to skip out on certain things, because you know, like, you have things that you want to work on, or you have things that you want to avoid potentially getting yourself in, just because you know, like, long term, like, okay, this is what I want. Or let's say that job or that degree or that certificate or that achievement that you're trying to work on, that most likely requires countless days and nights of hard work. Are you willing to put in that work? Are you willing to go through that discomfort in order to get the best outcome possible? And with the working out example, you know, like when they say when you get older, your body, like, you're not moving as much, or your joints might not work as much. So it is of your best interest to make sure that you're exercising your muscles and, you know, really like taking care of your body in your younger days. Even though like exercising is not fun, like, you can grow to like it, but at first, to start, y'all, it's hard, because it's just like, damn, like, I don't want to do this, but it's just like, I know that it's going to benefit me long term, so I'm gonna do it now. And plus, I'll be happy knowing that I made the sacrifice to start now, so that I can be happier later on. And plus, it makes you feel good in the moment. So it's just like, even when things are uncomfortable, there's still a benefit in it. Next, your comfort zone may feel safe, but it is slowly killing your potential. And the harsh reality is, once you start to become conscious of that, you start to realize how your comfort zone no longer feels comfortable, and it's actually really uncomfortable. No matter how you try to like blind yourself to it, you now know that I am not doing my best, and that can really play on a person, because you know that you want to get somewhere in life, but you're not willing to put in the effort. And that then requires you to gain the just motivation, the really understanding your why, so that you can work towards your goals. Next, no one owes you anything, so do not have any expectations. Having expectations will lead you to feeling disappointed, always. Rule number 1 of life: never be so entitled that you feel like somebody owes you anything. Nobody owes you anything. As an ex-people pleaser, this can be something that can be hard, because you feel like you have this idea of reciprocation, but not even from a sense of like overdoing because you're expecting something in return. But I'm just saying, from my perspective, at least that wasn't my case, right? But I know there are people where it's like they do things, but they do it because they want you to do it back for them. But I'm not that type of person. I'm the type of person, if I do something, I feel like I would at least want you to be considerate enough to, you know, like, be like that back in return, but I learned to not have expectations. So now I have a rule with myself. If I choose to do something, I am consciously making the decision to do it without expecting anything in return. So if I decide to be kind to you or extend myself to you in some type of way, if you don't give that back to me in return, I'm not going to have the mindset of, oh, I should have never done that for you. Like, it's like, no, if I did it, I want to make peace with my choosing of doing it, but then after that I know how to move with you. But I would never feel like, oh, you should have done this for me, because then I'm only disappointing myself based on your actions, which I have no control over. So it's like, why even have that expectation to begin with? Next, your feelings are not always reality. And this one can be tough, because when you have feelings, you should validate yourself. But I think the component that a lot of people don't think about is, are you self-aware enough to be like rational about your feelings? A lot of people are not emotionally balanced. So sometimes your mind can go completely left on something and you could feel a type of way about something. But if you were given additional information, you would then realize that, okay, your perception may have been different. And that's why it's so important to understand that perception is everything. But to have balanced perception is to also be self-aware enough of yourself, but also of your surroundings, so that way you can make better judgments. So that's why people say you should not always act off of your feelings, because your feelings are not always valid. Yes, you are entitled to feel how you feel, and no one can tell you that you shouldn't have felt how you felt. But the reality is, you could still feel some type of way about something and then not be 100% valid. Because like I said, if you had additional information, would your perspective then change and now cause your feelings to change? So it is very wise to not act off of your emotions, but to analyze things so that you know how to then move forward. Slow down, think, and just chill. Next, most people settle, and it's not because they have to, but sometimes it's just because it's the easiest thing to do. The reality is, even if there is a greater reward to waiting for something, a lot of people are not willing to go through the process in order to get that greater reward. A lot of people, especially in today's society, wants instant gratification. When something doesn't feel good to them, they're not willing to go through that process. And I'm not saying like a toxic type of feeling, right? If that's the case, yeah, you should maybe opt out of it. But I'm talking about like when something makes you feel uncomfortable, but it's for your greater benefit, because it is like building character development, or it's helping you grow in some sort of way. A lot of people are not willing to go through that process. It could be limiting beliefs of them feeling like they're not capable, or whatever the case is. Some people are happy enough to get their hands on what they can get their hands on with least effort, without having to adjust themselves or even to grow in order to receive something better. So a pretty common example is like, say for example, people who are dating, right? Oftentimes people's insecurities can make them feel like, oh well, why didn't this person choose me? Why did they go choose the other person? And sometimes it really could just be that because you had standards and the other person was easier, so it's just like, oh well, I don't have to put in the work that you are requiring for me to put in. And plus they could be getting benefits from that person without having to like really invest into it. So it's just like, well, I'm gonna just go with this option. But it's like, that doesn't mean that you are not valuable. You get what I'm saying? Sometimes people just go the easier route because it's just like, oh well, if that person is willing to be their dummy or to give them the access that they want without having to put in the work, that's what they're gonna go for. And for this specific example, it is so important for you to understand that you are not to lower your standards or your values in order to give access to that person. If they're not willing to put in the work and to get uncomfortable and to better themselves to meet you where you need them to meet you at, then that's just it. Let them go for the easier option and call it a day. Next, time does not heal everything, okay? Introspection, accountability, and action does. A lot of people say like, oh well, time heals, and yes, time does heal, but perspective also heals. If you are not operating from a healthy perspective of understanding why things may have played out the way that it did in whatever given situation, in a scenario, a person could be operating from like a toxic mindset and they're not really seeing things from the best clear lens, versus if you are able to like reflect, analyze, self-reflect, and again, accountability, right? That can help you really make sense of things a lot more. Let's say for example, relationships, right? If you were like younger and you were dating a person and you guys broke up and you felt like, oh my gosh, like I was so in love with this person, blah 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 blah, If you don't like elevate from a certain mindset, let's say depending on your dynamic, and it wasn't like the healthiest, if you don't elevate from like that mindset of like, okay, I was in a toxic situation, this person, we weren't really compatible, blah blah blah, if you don't reach that state, you're gonna still feel like, oh my gosh, I still want to be with this person, blah blah blah. But when you get to a space of like, okay, analyzing just like the different things, working on your self-love, your self-respect, self-worth, and all that good stuff, you then realize like, wait, I never really liked you. You get what I'm saying? So in that case, time did heal, but it wasn't time alone. It was perspective that was added into it. It was growth, it was wisdom, and all these things that were added into it to then reach that point of like, okay, like I'm over this situation. And this could go for relationships or friendships. Next, people can smile in your face and not like you. And this one, when I tell you I could not understand this because I'm not that type of person. If I'm not feeling your vibe, I will not keep myself around you. Like, I'm not going to try to be buddy buddy with you for no reason. You get what I'm saying? I don't feel like you my cup of tea, so I'm not going to engage with you. But y'all, you would be surprised. People will not like you and they will still be fake with you. People could not like you for various different things, even if it's something that you didn't provoke. Like, people could not like you because you're elevating in life and they feel like some type of way about that. People can pretend to be in your corner and secretly despise you and even try to do things to sabotage you. And if you are blind to it or you don't allow yourself to see like the reality of the situation, you're basically gonna have a snake slithering in the grass waiting to bite, but you're blind to it. That's why it's so important that just because a person smiles in your face doesn't mean that they like you or like things are all good between y'all. People can put on a mask because of whatever benefit that they are trying to reap from you, or even just, like I said, trying to get close enough to bite. So you got to be careful. Next, you might not be discovered, so you have to be willing to be seen and put yourself out there. And I know this is uncomfortable for a lot of people because I was that person, and I feel like that's something I'm like actively working on. You oftentimes would think like, oh, you know, eventually things are just gonna magically happen, but it's just like faith without works is dead. You have to put the actions behind the things that you want in life in order to see it manifest into your life. So I just feel like you have to be your biggest cheerleader. You have to believe in yourself. You have to be willing to put yourself out there. You have to get past the mindset of being afraid of people judging you and people having all these opinions of you, because at the end of the day, people are going to talk regardless. So you have to be willing to say like, you know what, I'm going to still put myself out there. Especially if you are blessed with a talent or you just have goals that you want to achieve, you cannot be passive at all. You have to be assertive. You have to put yourself out there. You have to be your biggest cheerleader. You have to know that once I keep putting my best foot forward, something is going to come of this. Even when you're not seeing results right away, you have to keep putting in the effort because you truly believe in yourself. Whether you do something good or you do something bad, people are always going to talk. So you have to be able to block out those noises or even just the idea of those possible noises and just keep pushing forward. Next, when people take you for an idiot, you're not only mad at the person, you're also mad at yourself. And this one is kind of tricky because I'm not saying it from like a bad space, but the harsh reality is when your ego takes a hit, you are now feeling like this person is viewing you a certain type of way, and you know that they would have only viewed you that type of way if you allowed them to, or if there was something that they felt like they saw in you to do the things that they did to you. You get what I'm saying? So basically, you're upset at the fact that they viewed you as weak, but it's just like you question to yourself, like, what about the way that I was showing up made you feel like you could even move with me like that? And sometimes when you give passes to people, you're also mad at the fact that you gave them countless opportunities to even play in your face and cross your boundaries, especially when they've shown you signs. So that's why it's really important to be self-aware enough and to also have accountability and also have boundaries with yourself, so that you are not allowing people to cross your boundaries, so that you don't feel like a certain type of way after the fact. But when you are self-aware and you are accountable, in some cases you will see that you have enabled them or you have allowed them the space to even do that. So do not give people the space to play in your face. Next, everyone is capable of doing bad, and to some people this may be hard to accept, but just hear me out. I'm the type of person where I believe in karma, okay? I don't wish to do onto people that I wouldn't want being done onto me. So I wouldn't cheat on a person. I wouldn't want to lie to a person. I wouldn't want to just be like shady and all these crazy things. Listen, everyone can cheat, everyone can lie, everyone can manipulate. Everyone has the capability of doing those things. But it is down to being like conscious enough and aware enough to say like, I choose not to do these things because I understand the consequences of it. I understand how that can make a person feel. I don't want to be on the end of making a person feel that way, but also I don't want to be the person doing those crazy things and then feeling negative within myself because I know it was wrong. Honestly, it really comes down to having integrity, but I just feel like also believing in karma, but it's not from a space of fear, but it's just like, I wouldn't want this done onto me, so I'm not going to do it to somebody else. But it's also understanding the reality of life, that there are people who may find themselves in compromising situations that they say they would have never done. So let's say, for example, if a person says they would never cheat, right? And they find themselves in a situation of, let's say, texting a friend, or let's say going to a strip club or whatever, putting themselves in compromising situations under compromising circumstances, there is a percentage, even if it's 1%, there is a small percentage of something going wrong, especially in the wrong circumstances, at the wrong time, at the wrong place, whatever, around the wrong people. Things can happen, but I just feel like, personally for me, like, I just feel like to avoid certain things is not to put yourself in certain situations that could possibly provoke that. You know what I'm saying? Like, if I know, like, if I'm in a relationship, I don't want to cheat on my partner. I don't want to feel like, I want to be able to look myself in the mirror and say like, I'm a good person, and I don't want to feel like just bad about myself or question my integrity, because it's just like, I wouldn't want that being done to me, so why would I want to do it to somebody else? But it's also understanding that if I were to put myself in the wrong situations, that is possible. Next, you can waste your years in life if you are always waiting to feel ready. You're not always going to feel ready when it comes to doing big things in your life. Even if it's not big things, a lot of times our fears can subconsciously control us because we are trying to protect ourselves. So we'll think of all these different scenarios where things could go wrong, or where it's just like, oh, maybe I'm not ready. But the reality is, your beliefs shape your outcomes oftentimes. So if you go into an exam and you feel like, oh, I'm not ready, you might do something, your nerves might start to kick in, which can affect your performance. Or let's say, for example, if you're feeling somebody and you're afraid to basically like talk to them because you're afraid of rejection, who's to say that had you not been afraid of that rejection and you taking the chance to go talk to the person, that they wouldn't give you a chance? You know what I'm saying? So it's just a lot of things. Like, when you feel like you're not ready, you can be delaying your blessings because you are not trusting in yourself enough to say like, you know what, I am ready for this opportunity. Your beliefs shape your actions, and you have to understand that your beliefs are not always true, especially in particular situations. So don't always allow your fears to hold you back. Next, your 20s are meant for building and not just finding yourself. Don't be fooled by society when they say like, oh, your 20s are just your waste years and you could just do whatever you want, party it off, make all the mistakes, because those same mistakes that you make can literally change the trajectory of your life. And I feel like a lot of people make the wrong turns in their life, or end up in situations that really just affect the outcome of their life because they utilize their youth as like a, oh, I'm gonna make some crazy mistakes. Listen, some mistakes you cannot come back from, and you can only move forward from. And the reality is, some mistakes can really cost you. So while personal exploration in your youth is really important, because ultimately that is the foundation to really creating your most authentic, aligned reality, you should also be focusing on building your skills, networking, and most importantly, I feel like healing, because the sooner you heal in life, I feel like the more you can actually live life through a clearer lens. But also educating yourself on financial stability and just discipline. Next, people who are inauthentic, which is majority of the world, do not value authenticity. Oftentimes, people who are inauthentic to themselves is because they are trying to conform to society in order to be accepted in some type of way. So when you are showing up authentically yourself, some people may feel threatened by it, because it's just like, why are you not fitting in? Why are you like deviating from what everybody else is? The reality is, most people are not themselves, most people don't know themselves, and most people conform to what people tell them to be in order to be accepted. When you show up as authentically yourself, you are challenging people, because a lot of people people feel like, oh, if they are authentically themselves, then people won't accept them, or, you know, like that's the wrong thing to do. But when you're just over here being yourself and you don't really care what people think and you're actually happy, people can be confused by that, because it's just like, why are you so different? People do not like different, and I just cannot understand it. It's just like, I feel like different is great. You get what I'm saying? Like, to be all the same is just like, ugh, to me. Do you not have like a personality of your own? Next, you are not as important as you think. And this one is kind of tricky, because I feel like for everyone, you should view yourself as important as you think you are, right? You are very important and you should be that for yourself. But when it comes to outside of yourself, like, people are not thinking about you the way that you think people are thinking about you. And this is something that I feel like a lot of humans, and something I even dealt with, like, it can be like kind of like you feel like the world revolves around you in your own mind. So outside of yourself, you feel like people are also thinking about you so much, but it's like, listen, they're not. Everyone got their own life that they worried about, they stressed with, they got other people in their life they thinking about. Listen, as much as your own world revolves around you, the whole world don't revolve around you. Next, help is a silent currency. Listen, I feel like this one is common sense, but like, if your vessel is not being taken care of, you will not be able to function in your most optimal form. The more you take care of yourself, the longer your life could be, hopefully, you know, like without like other life experiences that may happen, because life is unfair. The more energy and fuel that you have to show up, the more confident you feel to put yourself out there. Take care of your body now so that you don't have to reap the negative consequences when you get older, because sometimes when you get older, a lot of things start to happen and it's just like you could have avoided in your younger days. Next, your circle shapes your future, and we hear this a lot. The 5 people that you're around the most tends to shape your character, your identity, and things like that, right? The people who you surround yourself with can influence you in a way that you may not understand. If you have toxic people around you, they could be your enablers of toxic behaviors that could prevent you from being your best self, because you feel like, oh, you're comfortable around them. And oftentimes in a lot of relationships and dynamics, we are around people who we are in relation with or in connection with. It is so important to choose your friends and your circle wisely, because those are ultimately the people that you will be gaining habits from, and you better hope they're good habits. Those are people that you could potentially be gaining mindsets from. You better hope they're good mindsets. Those are people that you'll be gaining connections from their people. You better hope that those are also good connections. So it's so important to choose the people around you wisely, because that can affect the trajectory of your life. Choose people with integrity, people who are actually going to help you elevate in life and not pull you down, or even keep you at a stagnant place in your life. Lastly, the system is rigged, but you can still win. Life is like a game, and I'm going to do a completely separate video on this, but you are still able to navigate this life no matter how much the system wants to keep us down, and how it is basically like made to keep us poor, to keep us at a very low frequency. You can rise above that, and it all comes to gaining knowledge, but also just like building your self-awareness, and also just like growing as a person and utilizing your wisdom to navigate in life. That's what this channel is about, so let's grow together, y'all, okay? But anyways, y'all, my camera is about to die, so I thank you guys for watching this video, and I hope that I gave some really great points that you guys can utilize in your life. And I know it's long, and I'm sorry, but I think it was worth it. Anyways, thank you for watching this video, and I hope to see you in my next one. Bye.